Okay, so last week I went through preparations that you should make if you're going to join a new raid group. It's particularly important if you join a new raid guild, which is on a more organised basis. And part of that, the third step of that, I noted was analysis. So once you've done that group, analyse what you've done, have a look at areas where you have definitely been weak, and make sure that you improve for those for the following time. Okay, so what I've identified are 4 bosses where I certainly was weak, and make sure that I can at least improve on them. So that was Gorefiend, Iskar, Sokrathar and Tyrant Velhari. Okay, so Gorefiend was the first boss that was causing trouble. At the start, of course, if you're going to get touch of Shadow of Death, you're going to have a bad time, because you've got Avenging Wrath firing, you've got Seraphim firing, you've got the ring firing, and then you get sucked into his belly, where there's nothing to hit at all. There's the travel time to get in there, and then it's several seconds before any adds appear, and they're few and far between, so you're just losing loads of overall damage. Okay, but what really matters on a fight such as this, and indeed on any fight, is hitting the right mobs at the right time. So it's not really possible to just look at who did what damage to which adds, because of course you're not going to do a lot of adds to the damage to the adds inside the belly if you never get thrown in there. Similarly, you're not going to necessarily do loads to the ones outside if, for example, you're always being thrown into the belly, or you're always getting Doom, or you're always getting Shared Fate or something like that. So what we're going to do instead is just have a look what happens during Feast of Souls, where everyone's on a much more level footing. So for the first Feast of Souls, be about there. Now, a couple of things here. Obviously, this is where you are doing lots of damage. You line up all your cooldowns and everything, or you can see middling at best, when it shouldn't really be that poor. And then, but, you know, we'll look at the thing in your favour first. So melee, if Gorebound Spirit is up, which it is, obviously you want to make sure you're on that. That needs to die ASAP, so fair enough there. But the other thing I want to look at is lineup of cooldowns, which I don't think would have been good. So immediately what we've got here, when using offensive cooldowns, especially at a time when you're going to do extra damage, you want to line everything up. So we've got here Avenging Wrath. It's not been used right from the start. See, this is the worst thing here. Seraphim has just come off at the start of Feast of Souls, so I've got to wait all this time to be able to use it again, which means it misses the first 10 seconds of Avenging Wrath, which is when I'm doing extra damage because of the 4 set. The fact that that is not necessarily lining up with the ring is not ideal, but we can't really help that. The ring has obviously been popped so that everyone is on the boss, so it's obviously been popped after the adds have died. But really, I want a full set of I want Avenging Wrath throughout the whole thing. I should have actually used it even earlier, and then used 2 full ones, you know, to burst down the ad more quickly. But this is really bad. What's obviously happened here is that I haven't paid attention to the timing. There are lots of things that can throw you, of course. There's certain times when Seraphim will be available and you won't use it. You might have Shadow of Death, you might have Touch of Doom, you might have Shared Fate, might be any number of reasons why you're not going to use Seraphim even when it's got for cooldown. Obviously that's going to throw it out of sync a little bit, and you have to sort of pay attention to when the timer comes up for Feast of Souls, which obviously I have not, because I've used it when Feast of Souls is about to come off cooldown. I should have just delayed it and just waited so that I can use it at this point here to at least line it up with my Avenging Wrath properly, and get more use from the ring, because it's not even lining up that much, this next one, with the ring. And this is just basic Avenging Wrath doing 20% extra damage instead of all the extra damage I'm doing here. So that's not ideal, even though the overall percentage uptime of Seraphim is fine for this phase. It's not lining up with my most damaging periods, really. So that certainly needs dealing with when doing it again. That I would say is the key thing. Okay, so when we look at the re-kill, we can see a definite improvement there. So we're just going to have a little look at the details, because it could still be improved, obviously. But we'll have a look at some of the details here. First thing to note is I got spammed by Shadow of Death at the start again, and it didn't stop there. I was in there for the full duration, died to digest, came out, got rezzed rather, pretty much straight back in. So I spent the first phase, pretty much all of it, inside his belly, and he wasn't even happy with that. In the second phase he took me in there as well. In fact, the second phase I was so annoyed with it I used Avenging Wrath just to kill off some ads really quickly. Still had it up for the feast, so that was okay. But anyway, so let's just have a look at the difference here. So again, we're going to go to cast. We're going to have a look at what's happening during Feast of Souls. So first one there. So we can see that's much better. Again, I suspect in my defense I would still be... There's usually a gore-bound spirit up there. Oh, not doing much to it. Loads of people on it. Right, okay. Didn't do as well at all there. But then let's just see if we look at buffs. Yeah, this is the thing. I was partially wondering whether I would use Final Verdict. In the end, I actually decided to keep with Seraphim, but forgot then to change it. So I do want to use Seraphim again next time and make sure I line it up. But of course, you know, making sure things are lining up is obviously working a lot better there. Hungering Blows didn't do me any favours really, but then that's just RNG. That's just the nature of that trinket. The class trinket can be useful, of course, if you can, because you don't really worry too much about it in outside of Feast, but during Feast, if you can make sure that all three stacks are up, it can be useful. It's just one of those trinkets, though. Of course, you can still be doing damage to Gorebound Spirits and other ads that pass by melee and still maintain your stacks on the class trinket. I did a video on that quite a while ago. I can link it down there. But the thing is, if let's say you get Touch of Doom quite often, or let's say you get Shadow of Death 3 times in a fight, obviously you're not going to maintain very high uptime on it. So sometimes this is just the playing the percentages, the more sensible one to use. Just one of those things. You certainly wouldn't use the Cleave Trinket, because the Cleave Trinket then could accidentally cleave souls that are about to be broken out, but you don't want them broken out just yet. It's uncontrollable damage. I mean, I suppose if you keep your back to them, you're sort of okay, because it does cleave in a cone in front of you. But by and large, it's best not to use that trinket at least. But anyway, yeah, I mean, this was a definite improvement. Just have to hope next time, see what happens when I don't get Shadow of Death 3 bloody times in the fight. Iskar next. Iskar, this was definitely one to be improved on. What can we say about Iskar? What a calamity. An absolute travesty. Iskar is a boss I have killed a fair few times, and certainly reasonable enough to be quite comfortable with it. Usually the key things you want to know are, where do we go to place our chakrams, so that everyone knows where you're going for that, and you can make sure you're far enough away so you're not going to go kill anyone with it. And because I use Exorcist raid tools for passing the eye when I get that, I just want to know who should I pass it to dispel the bombs during the transition, because it's not, you know, you see the first two letters of their name, it doesn't necessarily match the raid frames exactly, so you just want to scout that out in advance, know who the key people are and where they are on that Exorcist raid tools grid, and then it's all fine from there. I had a look at the kill video, you know, but it's one of those where I'll be honest, I wasn't looking at it as intently as I might be on, say, a fight I haven't even killed yet, say Manaroth and Archimond. So I had a look at it and I thought, oh, they dragged the boss to the entrance. That's weird. That's funny. But again, not really paying as much attention as I now wish I had, because I now know the reason for that. Now, I mean, I'll show you what happened, basically. We can see, first of all, Phantasmal Resonant Damage. Okay, it's all right. It's not bad. It's not as good as I would like. Now, the third transition, different guilds do this differently, and I was aware of this going in. Some guilds will kill, I mean, the guild I was in, when I initially killed this, we kill off the ads and then kill off the boss. Some guilds, and I've done this before, in the third transition, just focus on the boss. So melee, just do what you can, and sod you on the dark bindings, because the dark bindings will go off, because the phantasmal resonance will not die. Don't stand on each other, kill the boss really quickly. So what I'm going to do, just to be fair, I'm going to look at the first two, because some people will not be touching the third at all. And then, of course, it drops down much lower. And I'm just going to have a look at the first one, because this is the one where it was of most surprise to me. Let's just fine-tune that a little. So first resonance, when I'm doing sod all damage on it, and look at buffs and what is going on here. Like, the ring is popped, as I'd expect, and I'm not using Avenging Wrath until then, because I am largely gobsmacked by what's going on. I have no idea what's going on. It's like something really bizarre has happened. And what it was is, the reason the boss was kited over to the entrance is deliberately to keep it well away from the other ads. That made sense now. It just wasn't prepared for it. I just was not at all prepared for it. I was using Discordant Chorus to cleave down all the ads. So the aim is to focus the Phantasmal Resonance, cleave everything down. That still dies before the chains go off, and we get the ads down before the boss arrives. Well, what we're doing here is single targeting the boss, the Phantasmal Resonance, I apologise. And then when it's dead, then trying to move very quickly over to the ads, so losing a bit of time there when Avenging Wrath is up, and then DPSing those ads down, focusing on the Talon Priest. I was not expecting this. So yes. Yeah, really bad. Now, I'm going to have a look at the next one again. If we look at the second one, again, I think I probably would have been a bit better prepared for this one. It looks like I was, look. A bit better prepared. Still not well equipped for it, because I wasn't expecting before the fight. A little bit better at least. Now, let's have a look here. Used the Avenging Wrath just after the ring went off. Not exactly the same time again, but because I wasn't necessarily knowing exactly when it would go off. But there you go. So did better. But that would be the main thing. Now, if I'm looking at this and I'm thinking to myself, okay, what am I going to do next time? The first thing I'm going to do is not be surprised by that. Second thing I'm going to do, I'm still going to use Avenging Wrath with this ring, of course, because, you know, if you wanted to increase your overall damage, this is one of these scumbag moments. If you want to increase your overall damage, you're obviously going to try and save that. Well, you delay it a little. Oh, you still want to time it with ring, but you'd need to get over to those ads really, really quickly, because you still want to get your Avenging Wrath used all the time. But ultimately, the Phantasmal Resonance is the key one to die, so you have to focus on that. Obviously, I'm going to make sure that Seal of the Righteous doesn't get popped till I go over to the ads, and just go from there. From the third transition, I was thinking to myself, okay, what I'll do is, do I go on the boss or do I go on the ads? So I was mulling that one over, and I sort of decided, well, if I get the chains, I'll probably stay on the ads so that I don't risk running over someone else or someone else running over me and blowing everyone to Kingdom Come. Otherwise, I might go on the boss. And I certainly wasn't going to use Discordant Chorus. I was going to use Unending Hunger. So if we have a little look at this, I can't even type. I'm all over the place these days. There we go. What are we on? Iskar. There we go. So a definite improvement. Still poor, but yeah, definite improvement. And again, now if we look at Phantasmal Resonance, then, you know, again, we'll just look at the first two, because of course it's unfair to look at the third. Some people are not even touching it. Still decent there. And again, if we look at the difference, what's causing this difference? From there, click on buffs, lining up exactly. So we've got everything lining up. Job's a good one. I'm just looking at something here. Let's just reset. I'm going to reset this. Oh, I did have Hungry Bros. It just didn't happen to go at all on... Oh, what am I doing? It just didn't happen to pop at all during the Phantasmal Resonance on the first one. Did it happen on the second? That's the problem with Hungering Blows. It's quite random. It might coincide with when you want it to fire off, and it might not. Maybe it did on this one. Maybe that's why I managed to do more damage on this one. No, you little bastard. You didn't. It looks like it didn't. Did it ever coincide with anything useful? Hungering Blows, where are we? At the start it went off, obviously. Yeah, didn't really coincide with that. It went off at the same time as that one was ending. Oh no, it coincided there. Oh, that's fine. Okay, and then yeah, whatever. But anyway, big improvement there. I just need to make sure that I can think of maybe use Speed of Light next time to get over to the ads a bit more quickly. The thing is, I quite like Long Arm of the Law though, because if you get wins, it's a bit more of an on-demand boost. Sometimes you just need a little boost, but a bit more regular. Same for moving out for Chakram. It just gives you that nice little boost back there and back. I mean, that's the thing with Long Arm of the Law. You get a little speed boost away and back, whereas Speed of Light gives you a massive boost away, but you won't have it to come back. And if you get hit by a few things in a short amount of time before the cooldown's finished, then you don't have it for that time either. So on balance, maybe I'll try it with Speed of Light just to see next time I go on Iskar anyway. Okay, Socrathar. Socrathar was a bad one. This was actually a really bad one. Now, with previous ones, mostly I think it was just you're a bit distracted. It's the new way of doing things. You're trying to learn people's voices on TeamSpeak and things like that. But this one was actually really bad. Now, I'll show you a couple of things. Now, first of all, if we look at the main things. So in the first phase, Soulbound Construct, get that down really quickly. Nothing wrong with damage there. Soul of Socrathar, which is the boss in the second phase, nothing wrong with damage there. But the key one you always go to is Dominators. These are the ones that need to be burst down immediately. Really poor. Really very poor. Now, okay, timing a bit out what I'm used to. I mean, ideally what you'd do, certainly if you're killing this boss for the first time, you use your ring on the pull, of course, and then you'd use it to line it up so that it sort of hits the first Dominator, sorry. We can't do that because the first Dominator, because we finished the first phase so quickly, the first Dominator, which is based on time, but it's based on timings when the second phase starts, happens too early. We haven't got the ring ready until here, really. So it's only available. So, you know, I mean, here you could sort of say, oh, we could have used the ring 3 times, but that means using it then, which doesn't coincide with the Dominator, and then when again it misses a Dominator. So if you're going to use it on a Dominator at all, it's got to be the second Dominator, which is when it was used. But I'm just going to look at that in a minute. What I'm going to look at is this first Dominator, because, you know, damage on this one was poor. Okay, let's just fine-tune that. And I want to really fine-tune it, especially at the start part of it. I'm not so bothered about the end. Because usual reason for not doing loads of damage, there's a couple of things, and I know them both, and this is really bad on my part. So if I look at my damage, it doesn't start till then. So slow to switch into it. And then the other thing is, and I really don't know what this is about, I'm going to look at this in a minute, no Avenging Wrath at the time as well. Not sure why that is there. Now if we look at this, this is what, 1 minute 28. So let's just, oh no, I meant to, sorry, let's put myself back on. Avenging Wrath, 1 minute 12. Oh, I did have Avenging Wrath up, it says there. Oh, that's weird. Or maybe I did. I don't know why it wasn't showing then. Strange. Anyway. Dominator. I would have thought it was strange not to have Avenging Wrath. Let me just see again. I did have it up. Must have just missed it. Okay, never mind. Right, okay. Let's look at the second Dominator. Over here. Now, again, let's just fine-tune that. So again, if I look at my damage, again, bit of a delay. So switching to it quite slowly. If we look at buffs, Avenging Wrath being used after that. Now I do admit I was a little bit confused as to the ring use. Now you're always wanting to know exactly when the ring is used because you want to line it with your cooldowns. And I sort of expected the ring to be used before the Dominator spawned, so that the explosion would occur on the Dominator. You know, like time it so that the explosion goes off 5 seconds after the Dominator spawns. But again, that was an assumption on my part. I didn't have any reason to believe that was going to be the case. So again, it's just one of these things. Just check that you know exactly when it's going to be used. Just ask the question exactly when the ring is going to be used, so that you can plan those cooldowns properly. You don't get caught out and therefore, brain fart and forget to use something. Is what I would say at that point. So that's it with Sokrathar, really. Didn't do it this week. I don't actually need loot off this boss, so I'm prime candidate to sit out on this one. If there's other people who do need loot, but at some point I'll go in again and we'll see if we can improve that at least. Especially when I'm more comfortable with the raid group. There'll be no excuse for any distractions because the Dominators are on time, as you can see when they're coming. There's really no excuse for not being quick to switch to those. Now, the final one is Tyrant Velhari. This is, and there's a couple of things about this that were different. Again, it's a fight I'm reasonably comfortable with in the main. Few things to bear in mind. Infernal Tempest, of course, is quite key for melee, and there wasn't set positions for this, so it's a case of me trying to work out how everyone else was going to behave during Infernal Tempest, and then try and make sure I can move out into clear space. I was absolutely bombarded with absorb text on this one, even though it's turned off. I did have this on my last realm as well. It seems to sort itself out after a while, so hopefully the next time I do this fight, that will be gone. But that was hugely distracting, and it did cause me to sort of jump into fire at some point. But by and large, what I will say is that ring usage is the main one that threw me on this one. Obviously, it's going to be used on the pull. You just expect that. That's just how it's going to be. Now, generally, the second use, I'm used to it being, and again, this crap prep on my part. I'm used to it being when the Ancient Harbinger appears. But that's not when it was used. It was used on the 3-minute mark for people who have 3-minute cooldowns. So there's obviously a significant number of those in the raid. So you can see here this big old gap for Seraphim. So because what I've done is, okay, waiting for the Ancient Harbinger. So, you save it. You don't just use Seraphim because it's off cooldown. So you save it at that point, delay it for a couple of seconds. Ancient Harbinger's appeared. Okay, great. Oh, the ring's still not being popped. The ring's still not being popped. Delay it a couple more seconds. The ring's still not being popped. A few more seconds. Before you know it, you could have actually got an extra Seraphim in there. Then it's popped, so, at least I am using Seraphim with the Avenging Wrath with the ring as well. I mean, that's the key thing. But yeah, I could have had an extra one in there. And now that I know that it lines up. Although, that being said, if it's been used in exactly 3 seconds, in actual fact, because I can't use Seraphim right at the start, I probably would still go with that gap, because to do otherwise would be to delay the use of Seraphim. I'd still have to fire off Avenging Wrath at the same time as the ring. So if it is 3 minutes on the dot, and we can soon check that, 3 seconds after it's pretty much, means that I probably will have to delay that one. But nonetheless, you know, the fact that it's something I wasn't expecting throws you, and anything that throws you is not ideal. Then the final one, I think this was the biggest thing, because I mean the timings were just so completely different that, you know, if I would probably go back now and sort of maybe think twice about my Avenging Wrath usage, because if I go to damage, the Sovereign, which is the final ad to appear, what I'm used to is what you generally do is you can't necessarily switch to it immediately, because often, you know, it arrives, the tank gets hold of it, but then there's a despoiled ground to deal with, so you sort of move out of that. And then it might not come straight away, it might decide to stand there and wave at you for a bit, so you wait for it to come in, and then as soon as everyone is able to DPS it, then you'd pop the ring. You can see my damage on this is reasonable. But that's not what happened. And again, that was a bit of a source of confusion because I wasn't expecting it. You can see this, it was used, I don't even need to put that on, do I? It's used almost when it's dead, which I wasn't expecting. Now, I have to say, I mean, first of all, it's one of these things you just need to ask. You just need to say, when are you using the ring? When are you using it? Are you using it on the port? Yes, we are. When are you using it second? I would have been told on the 3-minute mark, but I didn't. I could have just checked logs, should have done that, so that was crap. Third one, when you're using it, I don't think this was intended. I think it probably was intended to be used earlier on. And probably at this point, I mean, this is the point when I was expecting it to be used. I just went into autopilot and I fired off my Avenging Wrath. I obviously didn't delay my Seraphim there, which was also poor. But I fired off my Avenging Wrath. This must be the point at which I'm thinking, right, everyone can get onto it here. And it just didn't arrive for quite a while. It could just have been the person who normally pops it didn't, and then no one else did, and that'd be as much my fault as anyone else's. So yeah, so again, just sort of ask. I strongly suspect no one's going to say we popped the ring when the Sovereign's nearly dead. It'll either be when it's completely dead, or when it's available to be hit by everyone. So again, it's just sort of ask the question on that one, and then if I reset the whole thing again, if I look at my Avenging Wrath, so what we've got here is the normal use of it. I'm using a charge there, normal use again, second charge there, and then normal use there. So I don't have an Avenging Wrath for the final bit of the boss. I mean, that's obviously going to affect your overall damage because it's this period here when the Sovereign's down and you're on the boss that you have the accelerated damage buff, because the boss takes extra damage. So what you'd probably look at this point is, so when am I using, is look at the charge of the ones you've got greatest flexibility on it. 3 minutes and 5, what events were happening at 3 minutes and 5? Well, you're on Velhari at that point because the Harbinger's up. The Harbinger is up at this period here. That's, in fact, if I, sorry, what I want to do, 3 minutes and 5 is this one, I suppose, isn't it? So that certainly needs using. I'm just trying to think what I would do. Oh, for goodness sake. Sorry. If I could choose to use something slightly differently. In terms of finishing off the fight, this is probably fine. Absolutely fine. In terms of overall damage, obviously you're going to use that there. You're still probably going to use that charge there. Or maybe you don't. Maybe you just leave that, unless there is a DPS check to make, and just use that charge over here. Or don't use that there, use it there. That would then be available there to use at the end, and that becomes the second charge. So there are all sorts of ways to increase the overall damage. But again, is it necessarily damage that's helping the fight? Probably not. At this point, once the Sovereign's down, as long as a decent number of people are alive and the tank's alright and you've got cooldowns for the tank, it is going to die, isn't it? So, yeah, I think that would be okay. The final thing, which has not come from analysis of the logs, but was pointed out to me, was that on Cormrock, on Mythic, I was not soaking the correct thing. Now, I had had a look at Exorcist raid tools for where my position was, and it was sort of pretty much where I am now at the moment. So when he came in, I'm stood here thinking this is where I'm circling. But you can see at the top of the screen, it is pointing me 40 odd yards in the other direction. So yes, quite clearly wrong. As I did note, I was, I sort of asked the question, well, did someone change at the last minute? The answer was no. I'm thinking that was weird. That was bizarre. So yeah, the following week, obviously, I had to make sure I recorded this to make sure I didn't get that wrong again, because that's obviously a bad bobo and certainly something that doesn't come up on logs.
Can you hear? Are you done?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
done.
Yeah. Switching me and Ventusin.
Logan
It was
is
actually
literally
really
the
easy.
Wolverine.
Resetting.
Literally the Wolverine, 5 foot tall with like so much testosterone.
Is that Eddie?
Thete, do you know where do you go this week?
It wasn't there the last week, but yes.
What's in the video, mate?
Yeah, I know that, but when I tested it before, someone must have moved me. They must have put me somewhere.
It's right here where I'm jumping.
Yeah.
Oh no, I forgot not to use my cooldown.
Keep coming, get ready to serve.